Cleopatra VII Philopator, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt, is one of ancient history's most enigmatic and captivating figures. Her life was a fascinating blend of political intrigue, romance, and the struggle for power in the ancient world. Was she really able to seduce every man? What were her secrets to gaining such power over not one but two Roman generals, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony? These questions and more will be delved into in this episode of Secret Origins. Welcome. Early life. Cleopatra VII was born in Alexandria in 69 BCE, the daughter of Ptolemy XI and one of his wives, possibly Cleopatra v. Tryphena. Even though we know her as an Egyptian queen, Cleopatra was not Egyptian. The Ptolemaic dynasty, to which Cleopatra belonged, was of Greek origin, founded by Ptolemy I Soter, a general under Alexander the Great, and had been ruling Egypt since the death of Alexander in 323 BCE. Despite ruling Egypt, the Ptolemies retained their Greek culture and traditions, rarely adopting Egyptian customs. They were considered foreigners by the native Egyptians, which contributed to the eventual decline of their dynasty. By the time Cleopatra was born, the dynasty was facing numerous challenges, including power struggles within the family, invasions by foreign powers, and economic instability. What was the early life of Cleopatra like? Cleopatra was raised in a luxurious palace in Alexandria, the cultural and intellectual capital of the Mediterranean world at the time, and was given a first-class education befitting a future queen. Cleopatra was highly educated, studying various subjects under the guidance of scholars and tutors. She was fluent in several languages, including Egyptian, Greek, Latin, Aramaic, Hebrew, and Ethiopian, making her the first Ptolemaic ruler to speak Egyptian. However, unlike her predecessors, Cleopatra recognized the value of appealing to the cultural identity of the people she ruled. Despite not being ethnically Egyptian, she embraced many of her country's ancient customs, which, combined with her linguistic prowess, allowed her to communicate directly with her subjects and foreigners, earning her respect and admiration. In 51 BCE, when Cleopatra was 18, her father died, leaving the throne to his children. Cleopatra was designated as a co-ruler with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, who was only 10 years old at the time. The siblings married in keeping with the Ptolemaic tradition of sibling marriages to consolidate their rule. However, the siblings' relationship was fraught with tension, and a power struggle soon erupted between them. In 48 BCE, Cleopatra was ousted from the throne and forced to flee Egypt after her brother's advisors staged a coup against her. Cleopatra was determined to reclaim her throne and sought assistance from the Roman general Julius Caesar, who had arrived in Egypt pursuing his rival Pompey. Cleopatra then saw an opportunity to win his support and famously smuggled herself into Caesar's presence, wrapped in a carpet, and pleaded her case. But how did she manage to seduce him? Contrary to what many believe, it was not her beauty. Cleopatra's beauty wasn't her biggest asset, and it's quite likely that it has been exaggerated over time for political and cultural reasons. After all, she was a powerful woman in a male-dominated world, and her allure may have been seen as a threat to traditional gender roles. In fact, it was Roman propaganda that portrayed Cleopatra as a seductive tempest, using her allure for political gain. Cleopatra's image was featured on Egyptian coins during her reign, reflecting her power and influence. Remarkably, these coins depict her with a large hooked nose and a prominent chin, quite masculine features that do not align with the traditional image of her as a great beauty. The discrepancy highlights that she was likely more famous for her intellect than her looks. She was fluent in numerous languages and well educated in various fields. Plutarch, an ancient Greek biographer, claimed her beauty was not exceptional, but he wrote that she had a delightful voice and a persuasive tongue. He also noted that her presence was irresistible and that she possessed a most charming intelligence. Being quite intelligent, Cleopatra knew how to influence people. She often styled herself as Isis, possibly out of reverence for her or political reasons. She dressed and behaved like a goddess and pointed to ancient prophecies to justify her behavior, making people believe that she herself was the living embodiment of the goddess Isis. There are numerous legends telling that in order to keep her youthfulness and flawless complexion, Cleopatra had a special regimen involving several treatments, including a strict diet. One of these methods was bathing in warm donkey milk each day, which would help improve the tone of her skin and keep it soft. What is Cleopatra without her famous eye makeup? The distinctive lined eyes and the blue eyeshadows demonstrated her status, power, and connection to the gods, thus reinforcing her image as a divine ruler. But even though Cleopatra's makeup was an essential part of her image and served both aesthetic purposes, it was also used as protection. According to some sources, the kohl that was used for lining the eyes was made from full-leaded base materials and was intended to prevent eye infections rather than enhance beauty. Besides the iconic makeup, Cleopatra also thought that scents could influence people, so she created her own perfume in a personal workshop. She believed specific fragrances could hold power over individuals, and probably she was right, knowing her ability to seduce not one but two Roman generals. Can we imagine what Cleopatra smelled like? Today, many people have tried to replicate her scent. Researchers from the University of Hawaii at Manoa, who have been investigating ancient perfumes for years, have found remains of the perfume in the Nile Delta, dating back to around 4500 BC. They attempted to recreate the scent using ancient Greek text formulas. They also uncovered an original amphora with residual evidence of the ingredients used to make the perfumes. Though the ingredients no longer retain their smell, through chemical analysis, the researchers found out exactly what they were. The perfume would have been worn as a thick resinous oil and contained myrrh, olive oil, cinnamon, and cardamom. So perhaps, having this arsenal of seduction tools, it was not that difficult for Cleopatra to captivate Caesar's attention and make him agree to support her. As we know, Cleopatra and Caesar became lovers, which further solidified their alliance. His intervention ignited the Alexandrian War, pitting Roman forces against those loyal to Cleopatra's brother, Ptolemy XIII. After a series of battles, Caesar emerged victorious. Interestingly, Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile while attempting to flee. While it might have been an accident, it is believed that it was Cleopatra who murdered her brother. In fact, it is said that Cleopatra killed not one but three of her siblings, including the two she was married to, thus ensuring that her throne would not be disputed. But how did she do it? We'll find out a little further in the episode. In 47 BCE, she gave birth to a son, Caesarion, whom she claimed was Caesar's child. Caesar never officially acknowledged paternity, but the bond between him and Cleopatra remained strong. In 46 BCE, Cleopatra visited Rome with Caesarion, and they resided in Caesar's villa. Her presence in Rome was a source of controversy, as many Romans disapproved of her relationship with Caesar and her Eastern customs. However, their relationship was short-lived. In 44 BCE, Caesar was assassinated by a group of senators who opposed his growing power. This plunged Rome into a period of chaos, civil war, and power struggles. Cleopatra, now a widow, was forced to flee back to Egypt with Caesarion, who was seen as a potential threat to the new regime in Rome. After Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE, Cleopatra returned to Egypt and began focusing on consolidating her power. Her brother husband died under mysterious circumstances in 44 BCE, most probably because she had killed him so she could rule Egypt as a sole monarch. In the wake of Caesar's assassination, a power struggle ensued in Rome, with Mark Antony and Octavian, later Augustus, emerging as the dominant figures. In 41 BCE, Antony summoned Cleopatra to Tarsus, a city in modern-day Turkey, to discuss her loyalty to Rome and her role in the ongoing conflict. Cleopatra arrived in Tarsus in a grandiose display of wealth and power, sailing on a golden barge adorned with purple sails and silver oars. Her entrance captivated Antony, and the two quickly became allies and lovers. In 41 BCE, following her previous actions in securing her throne, Cleopatra engineered the execution of her sister Arsinoe, whom she considered a rival to the throne. Antony spent the winter of 41 to 40 BCE in Alexandria, immersing himself in Egyptian culture and solidifying his relationship with Cleopatra. They had 3 children together, Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene II, and Ptolemy Philadelphus. In 31 BCE, the long-simmering tensions between Octavian and Antony culminated in the Battle of Actium when Octavian's army invaded Egypt and besieged Alexandria. Cleopatra personally led several dozen Egyptian warships into the fray alongside Antony's fleet. Despite having a larger fleet, Antony and Cleopatra's forces were defeated by Octavian's navy, commanded by Agrippa. Cleopatra and Antony were forced to break through the Roman line and flee to Egypt. This defeat was a turning point in the struggle for power in the ancient world, marking the end of the Hellenistic period and the beginning of the Roman Empire. After the defeat, Antony received false news of Cleopatra's death and, in despair, committed suicide by falling on his sword. Cleopatra, devastated by Antony's death and facing capture by Octavian, chose to end her life as well. Their tragic story, which may have even influenced Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet masterpiece, is told by Plutarch, who explains that after the defeat, Cleopatra was afraid that Antony thought she had betrayed him. When Octavian's forces took control of Egypt and Antony's soldiers deserted him, she sent a messenger to tell Antony that she was dead. When he heard this, Antony stabbed himself with a sword.